Well, now, I look at this picture, and I see, if I just take the girl in the center, I see an incredible form of beauty amongst a field of beauty. I see precision, and I see line, and I see emotion. Now, how does one get there? It's Bradwell's theory of putting in your 10,000 hours, but in particular to a ballet dancer, it's a very rare bird who can achieve that without starting at a very young age. Typically, it takes 10 years to form a ballet dancer. And that's not necessarily from 3 years old. You know, that's just instilling a love of dance. Typically, by about 8 years old, if they haven't started by then, it's unlikely. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely. And there are certain rigors of stretching the body and aligning the body and not losing the love of dance. There's a phase before puberty where you can train the dancer out of the dancer. So it's all about, before puberty, getting them loving the response to music and the expressiveness of their body. And then basically you have to wait for puberty, because that will change everybody's body, and some will go by the wayside, and some will maybe be ready for an amazing career. Even then it's not assured, because then the polishing phases, which I think are very, very important, is to expose the dancer to the greats, to spark their imagination, to instill the notion of excellence versus perfection. And then they get their first job, usually somewhere between 17 and 18. The last and final step that can destroy them is finally someone's going to pay them to do something they would have done anyway. And they find independence. And wow, I'm free. I'm making money. I'm living the dream here. And many of them fall by the wayside then. And they have to test, and they have to, you're 20 years old, for God's sake. You've got to experiment. You've got to have a life. You can't not have a life and then expect to come to the stage and look like that and have that kind of expression. So it's not like you want to discourage people from experimenting in life, but, there are certain givens. And some of those givens are that you now are carrying around and feeding and using a Stradivarius. And if you mistreat it, it's going to lose its tone. And it's the only one you're going to get. No money is going to buy you another one. And the ones who then somehow take on the responsibility of their potential, as opposed to ride their potential, break through to start chipping away at the surface of that. The first real professional journey is existing in community. Understanding, I think, that in the hierarchy of ballet companies, there's a ranking. There's principal, soloist, and corps, or some variation on that. The hardest one really is the corps de ballet, because they need to breathe and grow collectively. But they can't be automats, When they have, like singing in a chorus, you have to hit your tone of the alto part and the soprano part, or the tenor. But when they have their individual moments, they can't be thinking just about the tenor part. They have to be individual. And then as they grow up, some will take incredible pride in being part of that group. And that's the most important group of any ballet company. That is what defines a ballet company, is its corps de ballet, not its stars. You can hire a star to dance with any company in the world, but you can't hire a corps de ballet to dance with any company in the world. And then the soloists go on to be, that's their moment in time to experiment. I always say being a soloist and doing the solo are not the same thing. There are many girls and boys in the corps de ballet who can do solos and do them incredibly well, but be the soloist is another story, and onward up to a principal dancer. So it really is about self-evaluation and, in a funny way, giving over to the notion that you're serving something bigger than you, even though you might be one of the rare few that they're throwing flowers at and bowing at your knees and think you are God's gift to humanity, and asking your opinion about stuff that you probably don't know about. But because you're really great at what you do, they think you know everything. You have to be it's a very fine line.